I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey, you guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the News du Jour. So we have so much kind of crazy news to go over today. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. First up, Twitter has made a deal with Elon Musk. So Twitter's 11-person board sat down with Elon Musk, and it seemed that they were considering working with him to take the company private, and they were. With a $44 billion deal announced yesterday, the world's richest person will be in charge of one of the world's most influential social platforms, which is just a little terrifying. He has big plans to shed some of Twitter's most important rules, like protecting people from false information and hate speech and the like. So this could be a very serious turn of events. We'll definitely keep you guys posted on this. So next up, France's election. So Emmanuel Macron, France's incumbent president, just won re-election, but he only won in a runoff race against a far-right opponent, so someone's more akin to a Donald Trump. Her name is Marine Le Pen, and it was a close call for Macron, you guys. A runoff race for president has to be high pressure. He took home 58.5% of the vote during the runoff, though, which happened just this past Sunday. The thing is, though, it's important to note, French politics and American politics are pretty different. And Macron is actually the first French president in over 20 years to win a re-election. So, here in the U.S., we kind of assume the president will be reelected. And if they're not, it's like a kind of, oh, okay, kind of moment. So this is a big win for Macron because it's, just much less likely to happen in France. That said, this is the closest a far-right candidate has made it to the presidency in recent years, and it definitely signifies a big shift in French politics. The cultural shift that we saw with President Trump in office in the U.S. definitely had ripple effects around the world, as we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and this is widely seen as an example of that. So next up, the EU lays down the law with big tech. So the European Union just passed something online called the Digital Services Act. And this new law is going to seek to fight misinformation online from companies like Meta, Google, and social platforms like YouTube and Facebook. This legislation is truly the first of its kind. It asks that ads not be targeted based on race, religion, or sexual orientation. It also puts parameters in place in terms of hate speech and violent rhetoric, with steep fines associated for companies that violate these laws. They are seeking to end this idea of self-regulation for these types of companies and actually make some rules of the road. And this obviously with the Elon Musk news is just, it's crazy. And I think we're just seeing, polarization on this topic. And it'll be really interesting to see, if the US follows suit and makes similar kinds of laws as we've been, thinking about for quite some time and sort of looking into. And negotiations actually in Brussels went on for over 16 hours. So this law may not end up being perfect, but it is a first step. And it seems most everyone, besides the companies themselves, agree that rules are needed in this area of industry. And yet it's been like no one wants to make the first move. So the EU kind of bit the bullet, took the plunge, and passed some laws. It can always be tweaked in the future once we see how these new rules play out, but it looks like the future is here, you guys. Stay tuned on this. And next up, Donald Trump is held in contempt of court. I told you guys we had some crazy news today. So, former President Donald Trump is being held in contempt of court for not turning over materials requested by Letitia James and signed off on by a judge. He will be fined $10,000 a day until he produces the requested documents. The Trump lawyers plan to submit a statement on why they are having trouble locating the requested documents. They claim they did actually give the Attorney General what she had requested, but this seems unlikely given how the judge is taking such a significant action. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted on this because this is getting crazy. And then lastly for today, we are going to shift over to Ukraine and go over some updates there. So first up, the two secretaries go to Ukraine. So we still don't have a ton of details on the two U.S. secretaries, Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, who went to Kiev. But we do know that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, did make a speech, and it included a bold statement. In it, he said, quote, "We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it cannot do the kind of things that it has done in invading Ukraine," end quote. So that is some really tough rhetoric, very to the point. And it's hard to say whether this will really happen. Obviously, it seems like Putin and the Kremlin in general have very serious weaponry, but whether they're actually able to produce armies and sort of the military personnel that will actually go into battle and win battles, that is what has yet to be seen. And Ukraine also during this time has made their stance clear that they need more support from the U.S., whether that comes in the form of more arms or a no-fly zone, as they've been requesting since the beginning, or more sanctions. They just simply need all the help they can get. And lastly, the U.S. will reopen its embassy in Kiev. So this is huge news, you guys, and definitely, will improve communications between our two countries. So if you guys remember, Donald Trump's first impeachment was about Ukraine and withholding aid to Ukraine. He was trying to get some dirt on Joe Biden's children, and so he was withholding the aid until Ukraine produced some dirt. And so during this time and during all of that craziness, he actually fired the ambassador to Ukraine with little to no cause. And it was a very chaotic moment. And that was sort of the source of his first impeachment. And since then, the position of U.S. ambassador to Ukraine has been open, despite the vital importance of U.S.-Ukrainian relations right now. This is super unusual, even if things had been stable in the country, which they're obviously not. So with Kiev as a city stabilizing after the Russians had backed off of the capital city, the U.S. has decided to reopen its embassy there and finally appoint an ambassador for the position. And they've chosen a woman named Bridget Brink. She has served as a Foreign Service officer for about 25 years, including 3 former Soviet nations. Slovakia, Uzbekistan, and Georgia. Hopefully, this will further improve communication and put us even closer in step with Ukraine and their needs. This is also a powerful statement to Russia that U.S. support for Ukraine is not ending anytime soon. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Sometimes it's the last key on the ring that opens the lock."
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.